Hey everyone, welcome back to You Are What You Love. I am your host, Marissa Tandon, and today my guest is an amazing writer whose work you've definitely heard if you've listened to mine. You may know her work from the amazing romantic comedy His Royal Fakin Highness, or from the more recent That Vampire Show, or from the upcoming Over Under Even. She's a little bit of a genius, one might say.
They could.
She's also a real life friend, and that's always nice. You know what I mean? Just a little
Yeah.
comfortable vibe.
Yeah.
So please welcome my pal, my buddy, one might say, Alex Whisenhunt to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so
doing
excited
it.
to have you, especially because we're talking about something one might refer to as one of the greatest shows in history,
Yeah.
or one collective fever dream of trauma.
Yeah.
It really depends on the angle.
Those are two sides of the same coin sometimes, especially when this is the coin.
So true. Well, let's put a name on the coin. What show are we talking about? What's the piece of media that changed your life, Alex?
Oh my gosh. It's Glee, I don't know if anyone saw it coming, but yeah, that show was really it was everything.
I have to laugh because I think about Glee and I realized as we were talking about this episode and preparing to record it, I was like, I do think it united a generation.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
yeah.
sometimes uniting does not have to be a positive thing.
Right. Yeah, no, there's such thing as trauma bonds, and that's, not to overinflate this, but yeah, it doesn't always have to be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Glee, here's the big question.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who perhaps managed to not see Glee,
Yeah.
what would you say that Glee is about in like a quick
Oh my
under a
gosh.
minute pitch?
Yeah, totally. Glee is a show about a show choir it's basically led by one man who's trying to relive his show choir glory days and recreate this for the current students that he teaches. That's like a really nice way to put it.
It's a very kind way to put it.
Yeah.
I would say.
Well, unfortunately, I'm still a fan, I guess. So that's how I put it for now.
I think that's fair. I think, yeah, Glee's definitely, I would say Glee's a little bit of, it's a misfit story, an
Yeah.
outcast story.
Yeah, it totally is.
It aired on Fox.
It did. Mm-hmm.
So those are the top
Yeah.
little things. I think it's a good description.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think you did leave out that's important is that this is a musical show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, and that's really what drew me in from the first second, is I was like, people are going to be breaking into song on a regular basis. And there was nothing I wanted more than in my life than to have people, when I was going through an emotional moment, to break out in song with me. Like, I had a song prepared always in my heart and in my mind, and nobody else was on the same wavelength. But in Glee, they understood the vision.
I also think one of the things that's cool about Glee that I'll throw out for people who don't have the context is that these songs are not it's not like High School Musical where they're like busting out into song in like a proper musical story format.
Yeah.
It is like covers of the song that they're performing that week.
Right.
In show choir.
Right. And sometimes the song would move along the plot, and sometimes the song would just happen and you would wonder if it was supposed to move along the plot. Sometimes it was unclear what the purpose of the song was that was happening, but it could be anything, and that was what made it so exciting.
I am curious, like, do you remember the very first moment that you saw Glee?
Oh, the very first moment? No, not specifically, but I remember like the earliest moment of Glee that always sticks out to me was when Kurt performed Single Ladies with some of the Cheerios.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but that was just like one of the moments I was like, this show is going to be amazing.
It just hooked you at that time.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know where it's going to go, but I got to find out from this.
So did you not watch from like the very beginning, the pilot, or did you sort of like hook in later and then get obsessed with it?
No, I started from the beginning, and it was one of the only shows that I watched live week to week. There was nothing else that I followed as closely as Glee, but I tuned in every week to watch the show live. And the days that I missed it, I was waiting so anxiously for it to come out on Hulu because I was like, everyone in my friend group will be talking about this tomorrow, and I'm not going to know what happened. So yeah, it was like just one of the only shows that I followed in that way. Yeah.
So it sounds like you were also experiencing it with other people. Like you weren't watching this by yourself
Oh
in
my
like
God,
a
yeah.
solo. Yeah.
No. It was it was definitely a community activity. I had friends who were very much into it, and anytime I was in a relationship in high school, it was like a requirement that they would log on to Facebook at the same time that like Glee was airing, and we had to watch it at the same moment, and they had to message me. Like we would Facebook message the entire episode. Like they had to do that. I was like, this is the only way this relationship will work, is if you're willing to watch Glee
That is so
virtually
funny,
with me.
actually. So they couldn't even come over. You were
No,
like,
they couldn't come over. It was like, because it was airing at like 7 or 8 at night,
Mm.
and I'm in high school. I'm like, you can't
can't
come
be
over
here.
and come do this, and also like, don't hang out with my parents. It's weird. But but you have to watch Glee, and we have to talk about it in the moment.
that
Yeah.
is incredible. Did you have multiple partners go through this?
I did. Yeah. Maybe like 2. It wasn't like crazy, but like, yeah, at least more than 1. Yeah.
That is funny. I did not know that about you, and you learn something new every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was one specific moment with I was like so young and so awkward, and there's a moment where Will Schuester, the main character, the teacher of Glee, who people have a lot of strong opinions about. There's an episode where he's trying to seduce the cheerleading coach. Sue Sylvester, in the show. He's trying to seduce her in the school. It's crazy. Anyway, he's singing, oh my God, I can't remember the song, but it was so uncomfortable. They're literally in a public school. He's trying to perform this to like get under her skin. And I just remember frantically messaging on, like my boyfriend and I at the time freaking out, messaging back and forth. The keys were flying. And my mom was like, you are typing so loud right now. Like, you have to stop. I don't know what's going on, but we can't even hear what's happening on the television. You are freaking out so hard on this keyboard right now.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So did you watched also the episodes with your family at the same time?
Yes, yeah. I subjected everyone to it. My sister
love
is
it.
like the only reason I've seen as much Glee as I have is because you would watch it live, and I would just sit there and be like, okay, this is what we're watching right now.
Is so funny. I think Glee was actually one of the first shows that I ever got like caught in a really good marketing scheme, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember this, but iTunes used to give away like free first episodes of television shows. They gave away Glee like 3 months before it came out.
Okay.
And so my friend and I, like, we were like the type of people that checked every day to see what shows were being given away for free. And so we downloaded this random Glee pilot.
Yeah.
Because we downloaded everything. It wasn't even like, oh, this like looks like it appeals. It was just, it's free. So we downloaded it.
Yeah.
Because that was back when like you had to buy DVD box sets. We sound so old. It was not that long ago.
I know. Yeah.
But it's like you had to buy DVD box sets, or like every episode of television cost $1.99.
Yeah. It did.
Because that was the only option of. So every time they gave something away for free, we downloaded it. And there were back then, in the olden days, there was a new like batch of free episodes every week. So like you would download something, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think we also downloaded like I think maybe there was some sort of scheme with the scheme sounds so like nefarious. There was some sort of situation with like the broadcast networks, because I watched a lot of broadcast pilots because they were free on iTunes.
Yeah.
But I never would have watched, like I wasn't sitting down to watch Fox like Fox broadcast, which is different than what we associate with Fox now. But like I wasn't sitting down to watch that all the time, so I wouldn't have necessarily like caught it. But 3 months before they released the pilot for free on iTunes, and my friend and I watched the pilot during like a free period or a lunch period. And I remembered we watched it in the gym, like on a laptop.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. We were obsessed immediately.
Yeah.
And then we had to wait 3 months.
Oh my God.
For the show to actually air. And we were like obsessed. We were like, you don't even understand. And we went to the first ever, which they did like at the same time after the pilot aired, I think. They did like a mall tour. And so we went to like the first ever Glee mall tour.
Yeah.
But we were like, we got caught. And I was like, why? Now I think back on it, and I'm like, people should be doing that. They should be sending out the first great episode of television months before. But yeah, they got us.
Yeah, to get people like hungry for it. Because it was really, I remember having to wait a week in between episodes. I was like, this is terrible. I'm
Yeah.
so unhappy. If I don't figure out what happens with Kurt next week, I'm gonna lose. Like, I need this information immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny actually because now I think about it and I'm like, was it months or was I just a child?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it could have been a couple weeks.
Yeah. And
I
you're
feel like it was months though. I
Mhm.
think it was a lot. I
Yeah.
know it was before it came out.
Mhm.
So it could have been a week.
Yeah. And it would have felt like months.
But it was really good marketing. I will stand by that.
Yeah, they really had a lock on the marketing, and I think it was actually a comment my mom made. She was like, "It's so smart because they used music from," she's like, "from my generation." She's like, "This is my music.
Yeah.
Like, this is stuff, not all of it, obviously, but a lot of things that she was like, you know, you pull people in with that. And there's so much music now, and this is one of my so much music now that to this day I only know because I heard it
On Glee.
on Glee.
Yeah.
Like there's some songs I can't sing along to because I'll just sing the Glee mashup. Like I
Yeah.
won't sing the real song.
It's, you know what, too, is like they picked a perfect song for that for the pilot because
Yeah.
they do Don't Stop Believing
Right,
in the
yeah.
pilot, which is like you still think about that
Yes,
as that song.
iconic.
And you can still hear it.
Yeah. I can
Like-
see the staging of that.
I can see the
see it
red
all so
shirts, the little
perfectly.
like awkward line that they start in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a choice because the people who were that show was intended for, like us and
Mhm,
that generation, were like, what is this song?
What is it?
And then your parents who are probably like standing over your shoulder
Or
are
like,
like,
oh my God.
it's Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah. We love
Um,
this.
So
Yeah.
do you remember like what was going on in life at the time when Glee started?
I mean, you know, you mean my life?
Yeah,
Just
your life.
My life.
No, the American.
The American, yeah, the whole state of America. No, can't recall that. But in my life, you know, I was in high school. I think Glee started in 2009, and that was when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
So it was kind of like perfect. Like it matched up so nicely with what was going on in my life at the same time because you had fresh high school students stepping into this like new environment, a bunch of outcasts, and like, you know, that was me all over. I was very much theater kid, very much like dreaming of Broadway, unfortunately watching Glee and like being like, oh my God, Rachel Berry, I so like understand her. And now I'm like, absolutely not. But yeah, it felt like a group of people that I wished I could be a part of. And at a time when I was really looking for who I was within a
Yeah.
group of people, like what character I was supposed to be. Yeah, and I think that's why I just kind of jumped on the bandwagon because there's nothing that I love more than a gang of misfits, you know, an unlikely crew. Yeah.
It's funny that you bring up the idea of like which character am I?
Yeah.
Because that show is one of the shows that really was like, let's pluck one from every
Exactly.
social archetype
Yep.
and stick them in a room together.
Yep.
So everyone really could pick. I feel you've got
Yeah.
like Rachel with like the show choir. She's I'm a star. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be
exactly.
on Broadway.
I'm gonna go to Broadway. Yep.
And then you've got like Finn. You've got like a massive jock, like
Yep.
kind of popular kid.
Yep.
You've got Santana. So you've got the mean cheerleader.
Mhm.
So you've got like Quinn. You've got like the the hot blonde, like
Yep.
very nice.
Yeah, the good
character,
Christian
Christian girl. Yeah.
Mhm.
Then you've got quite a few.
Yeah, you've got the burnout. You
Yeah.
have like the dumb cheerleader. You've got the dumb blonde. Like,
Yeah. It's very Breakfast Clubby
yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah,
it
yeah,
feels.
yeah. That's literally it. Although it starts with like such a funny, like weird little they'll never pull it off group, which is also, you know, how will they pull it off? You have to find out. You simply must know how they're gonna pull this all off.
Yeah. How will these underdogs make it through Show Choir 101?
Yeah, and the whole push for the show was like, will they win the big competition?
Yeah.
Right? But that was always changing. Like it was like it's regionals, it's nationals, it's an invitational. Like sometimes it was never like a season always wraps with the big, like the show, will they win? You know, it was never clear that was going to be the end of the season. That would just fall in random points. And you'd be like, wait, it used to take them like a year to prepare for this. And now we're here in like 2 months and we have so much other drama to get through. But yeah, no, it was such just rooted for him from day
the
one.
beginning.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite character?
Yeah, Kurt, like
yeah?
immediately. I think he was actually one of the first, maybe the first queer character I ever saw in a TV show, even though it's not like open from the beginning, but it is very obvious. And I just, I don't know. I loved him. I don't know if I related to him exactly, but I definitely wanted to know him. And I was like, this just seems like he I would like cut out pictures of him from like magazines and hang them on my wall. Like he was really the one that I was so obsessed with, and I think I just wanted to like be his friend. Yeah, yeah. I rooted for him over really anybody else in the
I think
whole
he was
arc.
also the one that had, like, for better or for worse, the most heart to that
Yeah.
character.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
everybody else sort of had a little bit of evil in them.
Right,
You
they
know?
did.
Like,
Mhm.
Kurt just seemed I mean, Kurt made choices as well, but
Yeah,
Kurt just seems like he really just wanted to have a good day, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I love that little guy.
Well, what was, like I mean, what was sort of, like, the part of town that you were growing up in? What did the kind of world around you look like as you started to watch Glee?
Yeah, so I was growing up in like a smallish town, not, um and it seemed actually kind of similar to the
Mm,
one in the show. I mean, more or less. That takes place in Ohio. It's a little bit more Midwest, and my town was not so much like that, but it did feel kind of similar. And then yeah, so I grew up in this kind of small town, and there weren't a ton of outlets for me to really engage with musical theater and
mm,
performance, which were some of my favorite things to do. I absolutely loved being on stage, even though I was like pretty shy. And it could be difficult. But there was one musical that happened every year at my high school, and that was like your shot to
mm,
that was like the one shot to do something. And so I think one of the reasons that Glee really appealed to me is like all I wanted was this like continual opportunity to perform and to be a part of something and to see that like standing up every week. I was just like, this is amazing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, to the and it was such a phenomenon. Like after it came out, I remember I was in these select choirs in
Mm,
high school, which were like the big deal, and that was my one claim to fame was being able to have auditioned and gotten into the select choirs. But it was nothing like Glee. We didn't perform in the same way. I remember our choir teacher sitting us down at one point, being like, "I need you to understand that." These people are all professionals. Like the way they train, they have backing record. And she was basically like, we can't be Glee. We can't become a show choir. It's what they're doing is not feasible for high schoolers. They're not high schoolers.
yeah.
She really had to sit us down and say that. And then even after the fact, we still had some seniors who went and like tried to start a Glee club. Like they tried to start a club that was audition only and really actually try to emulate this exact thing that was happening
Oh
on
my goodness.
television. Yeah. And it was like the exact same thing. And I was so intimidated because of course it was like the most popular people
Sure.
in the choirs, and I was younger, so I wasn't like good friends with them. And wow, I can't even remember. I'm pretty sure I auditioned, but I don't think they ever got it off the ground. I don't remember even if I like made it in. I just remember them announcing it and being like, "Oh my god, it's happening." And then it did not happen. But yeah, it really took over in those ways, and we were just it felt like everyone wanted to be a part of it
Yeah.
somehow. Like everyone was like, "How can I jump in on this?" It was so strange.
It's so funny to me to listen to it because it's like thinking back on it, yeah, it was like a large phenomenon, not just
Yeah,
like in certain areas.
right.
And it's
Everywhere.
yeah, it was everywhere and
Yeah.
everyone was obsessed with it. And if you talk to anyone kind of like from our generation, like Glee is a touch point. Whether you
Yeah.
hated it, you loved it, or
You
you loved
know
to
about
hate
it.
it. Like
Yeah.
you know about it. And people were so obsessed with it. And it's so funny to listen to you talk about like the popular kids were forming a Glee club because
Yeah.
the show is about the fact that these
It's
people
not
are
cool.
losers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't and I know, and that was the thing is that it was so cool outside of the show. Like,
Yeah.
everyone wanted to be in the Glee Club, even though the whole point was, just like you said, they were not supposed to be the
They were not the cool kids.
Mm-mm.
And I do think it says something really interesting about sort of like I mean, there's obviously the element of like they were played by beautiful people.
Right.
Right?
They were not high
Like,
schoolers.
They were,
They were
they
not
were adults
Yes.
that
Yes.
have, skincare
Mhm.
routines
Right.
and hair and makeup
Although,
and
I think Chris Colfer was 18 when
oh,
he
was he
started on
really?
the show. Yeah, did a little
I did
I've
a
looked
little
into it.
Google.
Yeah, he was like the youngest one
I did not
in the
know that.
cast. Yeah, and they
Um,
created the character for him
wow.
specifically. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Good for Chris.
I know. So yeah,
Yeah.
love him, love Kurt.
No, I think it's so interesting that it's like you can take a show about misfits and outcasts fitting in,
Yeah,
and then that feeling is what makes it so cool
yeah,
that then people are like, we're gonna start a show choir.
Right. And then it felt kind of rude because I was like, I am the outcast. Like, I wasn't the outcast in high school. Whatever, but I wasn't popular by any means. And I was like, wait, no. This is supposed to be my thing I can relate to. And now you're building. It's weird how it got built into this other thing. And it was like, oh, now it's cool.
Yeah.
And now the thing that was supposed to be about outcasts and others is like being elevated to a more popular status. It's just funny. And you're like, okay, well, I'll just keep the show because here, like, it is what it is and exists the way that I want it to.
So you were in essentially a show choir, but not the intensity. I do like the idea of your teacher having to be like, listen, no.
She really did too, because I was actually in 3 select choirs.
Okay.
There were 3 of them at my school, and 2 of them were like much smaller ensemble, but I wouldn't even call them show choirs because we didn't move at all. And I think that's really the piece that we want. Like, we wanted to build more of a performance for some of these elements. And, you know, my choir teacher was like, I'm a music teacher. Like, you know, I didn't come here to start doing choreography and like doing whatever. And I think we all understood that there wasn't a huge push for it,
like an uproar.
Yeah, we were like, "Are you kidding me?" But yeah, it was pretty funny because she did have to give us like a healthy dose of reality, and I remember it clearly. Her being like, "Listen, they're not performing anything they do live. Like, this is all pre-recorded. Like, it's not realistic."
That is so funny. It's, you know, I wonder. Like, looking back on it, sometimes I do wonder, like, did it come from High School Musical? Because like High School Musical was such a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it started like much earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, like High School Musical comes out in 2006 and then this doesn't come out until 2009. And High School Musical was such a phenomenon that like people were running through the halls singing the song. Like that was the movie. Like so I do wonder how much like that paved the way for them to be like, okay, there was the Disney version and now here is like the Dawson's Creek version of this. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, you know, we've seen this kind of high school sitcom-y thing before, but what if they were singing the whole time? Like, what if this is the new, what would that be like?
Yeah, because it definitely plays on like the normal trope of like jock wants to fit in and be popular. He wants to play football and sing. He's got to get his head in the game.
He's gotta.
His head's in the game, but his heart's in the song. You know what I mean?
Quite literally. Yeah. Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, if High School Musical hadn't happened, would they have been like, what if we made the jocks sing?
You know, maybe not. High School Musical walked. Troy Bolton walked so that Finn Hudson,
yes.
So that Finn Hudson could run, you know?
I am, you know, yeah. Our whole generation owes it all to Kenny Ortega. To be fair. We really do. That's not even a joke.
No.
That's for real. Mr. Kenny.
Yeah. Shout out.
Thank you so much.
Shout out to a real one, you know?
Yeah, truly. This is such a sidebar, but speaking of Kenny Ortega and the intense impact he's had on the world.
Yeah.
I do sometimes think, what's like a career goal? And I think he's got it. You know what I mean? Every child that is now in their 20s-ish, 20s and 30s, like they owe it all to Kenny Ortega.
Right.
They owe none of it to Ryan Murphy.
Yeah, no. Don't give anything to him, but Kenny for sure.
There was I don't know if you saw, I haven't even watched it, but I saw a clip of like the Jonas Brothers roast that they did. And Sophie Turner, her joke was, I said I would never date an actor, and after I saw Camp Rock, I knew it was okay to date Joe. Think about that all the time.
So funny and so true.
So true. I actually think, again, as a little tangent, Joe has done some roles that I'm like, you should be in more. Yeah. He was in Righteous Gemstones as himself, but he plays sort of like a caricaturized version of himself. And it is so funny. Like when he came on screen, I was like, is that Joe Jonas? And then I was like, oh my God, was that Joe? He did a good job. Good for Joe.
So good. People can grow. Look at that.
They can. I'm proud of him. I'd like to see him in more things.
Yeah.
He is in fact my favorite Jonas brother. Yeah. I was always a Joe girl.
I don't think I always was, but I think that's the right.
It's the right one.
Yeah.
I will respect to Kevin.
Really?
Yeah, Kevin really after the documentary made a difference for me.
Interesting.
I thought the documentary really made me feel that Kevin has been just not treated right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do feel Kevin, you know what, Kevin? You are a great brother. a great role model,
hmm
and you seem like a good dad.
Yeah.
So I feel passionately. Also, Kevin can sing, and they just don't really let him sing.
Right. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
general, back then, I was like, "Oh, it's Kevin." But now, put some respect on Kevin's name.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that is to say is that I think our generation had, like, a lot of the High School Musical element, like,
Yeah.
literally the
Yeah.
High School Musical, and then, like, you've got Camp Rock, you've
Mhm.
got Lemonade Mouth is a little bit after us,
Yeah.
but that was, like, that played in that same generation,
Yeah.
that space, and then you've got Glee, and, like, there's something about the musical.
Because I think it was like it felt like a performer generation, like, and it was like the way you do that. It's like singing. Like everyone is gonna be a singer. Like we just want to create. I don't know. It's like how do we these like rock stars, right? Like
Yeah.
it just felt like that's what everyone was kind of trying to build up to because it felt like the time before. I mean, I think this is true, but like before influencers, like I didn't really feel on that path, and it was like
Mm.
the way to celebrity was it was like actor like rock star,
Yeah.
become a singer, do all this stuff and really like push into that world. So creating all these people who could not only act but were also amazing
Singing.
vocalists.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, that's it. Like that's
Yeah.
what stardom looks like. That's what star power is like.
Yeah, because you really did have, like, the shows that were it was Hannah Montana.
Yep.
Like, that was, like, a big thing,
Yeah.
and so it really did sort of tell you, like, you can sing your way
Yeah, you can
outta
sing
here.
your way to the top, you know? And that was the point of Glee. They were like,
And
we're
bop
going
to
to
the top. Like,
bop right up there, you know?
right up to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like, I think all of those did take these, like, arguably dorky air quotes around that, like,
Mhm.
hobbies of theater, like musical
Yeah,
theater.
yep.
Like, so you've got, like, musical theater, you've got show choir, you've got Hannah Montana's a little bit different, and she's a
Mhm.
rock star.
Yeah.
But when she takes the wig off and she's just Miley, she's really quirky.
Yeah, yeah. She was kind of goofy.
So it's like you had this sort of, I think our whole media space at that time was sort of like this like misfit quirky girl element, but like every single one of them had the ability to sing, like
Yeah.
to be a star,
Had
and
that
to
star
be,
power.
yeah.
And I think it was this idea of like, oh, I'm just kind of this like quiet girl in the background. But like when I open my mouth to sing, like
Mm,
people hear me. People stop and have to listen because
Yeah.
it's so good. They can't believe that like because you can be such a quiet person and then when you sing, if you're good at it, it forces you to be loud and take up space in certain ways. And so it was in kind of that way of being like, oh my gosh, you were listening, like you were looking. It was kind of, I don't know, it was empowering to be like, this is a way to claim space.
Yeah, I like this idea that you brought up of like the influencer wasn't fully there yet.
Yeah.
Because it feels so much like I think about the idea of being a kid today and I can't even fathom it.
No.
Because it's I get a little caught up on TikTok
Yeah.
or putting, I gotta
Mhm.
write a joke today or I gotta post a funny
Mhm.
video. And it's like, yeah, but I'm a grown person with like other things going on in my life. Like,
Mhm.
so I can do that. I've formed my personality.
Mhm.
I know who I am
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
I'm making it sound like I'm so enlightened.
Right.
I don't. I
Got it
don't
all
know
figured
much.
out. Yeah.
I have nothing figured out, but I don't feel like the only thing I have going for me is posting on the internet.
Yeah.
And also, most of the time, like, people who see me in real life see things that I post on the internet, of course.
Mhm.
But it's not like every once in a while, it's sort of like, oh, like I saw that video and I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, you can see it.
Yeah.
For kids these days, like, they're posting it because of their peers. Like,
Right.
they're posting it to, to fit into that.
Yeah.
And that's a really big thing.
Yeah.
And I really can't imagine trying to form your sense of self in
No.
this era
Mm-mm.
of life and social media.
Nope.
But I actually am positive the influencer wasn't a thing because I refused to get an Instagram.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I did not have one.
Didn't have one.
I think I got one. It was post Glee. Like, Glee
Yeah.
came out and
Yep.
Instagram existed, but I did not have.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was one of those like, "Ugh, I'm so cool. Like, I don't need to just
don't
like be
want it.
posting pictures of myself on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post them on Facebook,
Right. Where they
so
belong.
where people can see them.
In an album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think I knew that like Instagram existed.
Yeah.
And I was on Facebook, but I wasn't like super deep into the internet. And
Yeah.
so I feel like for me, the way I could kind of take my characters with me or take these stars with me was like their music. And I would put, I had like all the Glee albums on my iPod,
Yeah,
on my little
classic.
iPod Nano. And, like, this was how I brought these characters with me, and, like, they were always around me because I was listening to them sing, like, whatever song I wanted to
Yeah, that
listen
was the
to.
other thing I was gonna bring up is that I remember Glee, they released an album with every season,
Yeah.
obviously, but they also used to release, via iTunes, like, you could buy the song, like, the next day
Oh, yeah,
after.
yeah.
Were you that into it?
No, I didn't I wouldn't do that, because I was like, I'm not gonna pay for it, but I would absolutely wait until I would get the albums and just be like, "Okay, we'll do it at this point," you
Yeah, yeah.
know? Unless it was one that I like. I'm sure that I had favorites where I would probably anything that Kurt sang,
Mm,
anytime he got a solo, I was like, "Yeah, I'll buy that song." Like, I want that song right
yeah,
now to listen to, but outside of that, I would
you just wait.
wait till the albums, yeah.
So you mentioned that, like, it was pretty popular at your school, like,
Yeah,
everybody was watching it,
yeah,
everyone was talking about it, show
mhm,
choir was being started,
yeah.
secret societies were being
Yeah.
formed. Did
Lines were being drawn, you know? Yeah.
So what was your experience of, like, sharing the show with other people and, like, being engaged in what was arguably probably one of the biggest and most intense fandoms to sweep a high school generation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think I really realized that I was, like, in a fan I was just like, this is life.
Yeah.
This is what we are talking about, and if we're not talking about this, we're just not having a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause you would relate your life to it, you couldn't believe what was happening, what was gonna happen next,
Yeah.
like, it just you felt like it was the first time where I had characters that it felt like people that I knew. Like, I would sit down
Mm.
at a table and start talking about them, and it felt like I was talking about like friends,
Yeah.
you know? You'd be like, "Oh my god, can you believe, like, what Santana did to Quinn last night? Like, that was so messed up," you know? In a way where it's just like, you don't know these people, but it was that intense, and
Yeah.
that's what it felt like, and I think it was because everyone around me was to that same degree of, like
That intense about it.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
did you ever, like what was it like if you missed an episode? Like, going to school the next day?
Devastating. I was
Yeah.
like, I can't sit with my friends. I'm like, "We can't talk about this," you
Yeah.
know? Because either I'm like, "Okay, I have to remove myself from this so I don't get any spoilers," because
Right?
that was the thing, I really cared about that at the time. Didn't want anything ahead of time, and so I was like, "Okay, I would have to remove myself from the conversation or sit down and be like, guys, can't talk about Glee today. Like, I'm really sorry," you know? But it wasn't just me, so I learned to extend grace to other people who would
Yeah.
miss an episode, and I'd be like, "Okay, but we're all watching it online tonight, right? And then we'll be back tomorrow, to, like, check in and catch up." But, no, it was one of those things where I feel like while I was watching it live, I missed very few episodes
Mm.
because it was such a it was so bad when I
Yeah.
missed it, and I was so unhappy when it happened.
Have you ever had something after that that has felt the same way? Or is that the only time that you've ever experienced something that intense?
I was thinking about it, and I was trying to remember if there's any other show that I've watched, like, week to week as it
Yeah.
was happening, and I don't think so.
No,
I
never?
think it was literally got to the experience where I was like, it was so hard. Like, it was too much at a certain point, and I cared too much about this show and these characters where I was just like, I can't do that again, and I also kind of fell off after the 5th season of
Most
Glee,
did, I
which
feel.
most
Yeah.
did, and so that was something too where, like, when I fell off, because I also went to around when I went to college, it
Yeah.
became harder to watch it week to week because I didn't have cable
Sure.
television anymore, but yeah, so that's why I kind of fell off, and then from there, I was like "Oh, what a release to not have to be, like, so intensely involved," and too, by then, the episodes were just really starting to go off the rails, so I was
Yes.
like,
It was a good time. Yeah, I think it was a good time to leave.
Yeah, yeah,
I actually have not finished it. I do know what
yeah,
happens, but I
but
just
you never
couldn't.
did you
Yeah.
watch through, like, the 5th season or
Yeah.
you yeah,
I watched through,
mhm,
like, whatever year it was that we went to college. I think it would have been the 5th season.
yeah.
Yeah. I
That's fair. I was a couple years ago, a year ago, I was rewatching Glee,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Fortunately, unfortunately, it's unclear to say. But towards the end of the 5th season, there's an episode where this is not a spoiler, but the cast, I mean, unless you're really involved, but at this point, the cast sings "What Does the Fox Say?" And they do it with, like, puppets of
I
themselves.
did not see this.
Maybe it's in the 6th season. It might have that energy. Anyway, it's like it is talk about a fever dream. Like, it's one of those moments where afterwards, rewatching it, I was like, "Okay, I blocked this out the first time around," and now I just couldn't even believe what I was looking at. And I cannot tell you, it didn't apply to the plot. I can't tell you. It was one of the most insane things. And if you don't watch any of Glee, still look up this performance if you just want to see something, if you want to feel like you're, on an active drug trip. I don't know. It was really, really insane. And from that moment, I was like, why didn't they cancel the show off this episode alone? Like this moment alone felt like enough for someone to look at it and be like, I think we've done everything we can do.
Yeah.
If this is what's happening right now.
The thing that's also funny to me about that is like the way you've described the phenomenon of sort of like we have a show about outcasts that now is so cool that everybody wants to do this thing that outcasts are doing.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the same thing happened with the show in like terms of the industry as well, because it sort of started with all these actors nobody knew.
Yep.
And like they were just they were all like really powerful singers. They were all beautiful. Like they were all really great.
Yeah.
But they were all brand new.
Yeah.
And maybe brand new is not fair. Like as we know, Leah Michele had done plenty.
Right.
But like on Broadway, like nobody knew on the mainstream side of like who she was. And like I know for a fact for me, like I had never seen any of those actors before.
No, right.
And so other than Jane Lynch. So Jane Lynch is your star of season 1, right? And also Jane Lynch is becoming familiar to a different generation from that show that like people didn't know who she was before that. So you don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
You just know that they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I think Glee has such a bad rep for like the story itself, but I do think season 1 was really good.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like it was actually a genuinely good television show.
Yes.
And then it kept going. And so
yes,
that's but the thing that was so wild to me when you look back at it is that it got so popular that then the show got so cool that everybody wanted to be on it. Like
yes,
and that was huge.
And they did the Glee project.
Yes,
yeah.
So they were able to have. So you have massive stars like Gwyneth Paltrow comes on.
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of
Kristen
all of this.
Chenoweth.
Yeah,
she's
Idina
on it.
Menzel.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
You have huge stars coming onto the show, and they're like, yeah, I just need to be on Glee. And it's like it becomes this like coveted thing.
Yeah.
And then you also have, it gets so popular that they're able to make a reality television show.
Yes.
About getting to be
on
a guest star on the show.
Yes. It was amazing.
Incredible.
It was just, and it had this huge following that was so powerful. I remember before they cast Idina Menzel and before she was ever on the show, we as fans were like, Idina Menzel is Rachel Berry's mother. Like we know it, and we are pushing for it, and we want it more than anything, because in the show she has 2 dads, and she doesn't know who her mom is. And the whole time, like everyone is just like, we know, we know. And it felt like one of the first moments where I witnessed, I don't know where it came from, but watching like a fandom say, this is what we want and this is what we see, and then watching the show execute that, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I felt like we did it. Like we accomplished something as a collective that made it happen, which was it felt incredibly satisfying, even though she's not playing Idina Menzel, whatever. But
of
it was
course,
like,
but it's like, that's who it is.
Yeah.
And it's, I think I think that fandom, I've been thinking about this a lot of like what the creators, like the actual television show's role is in engaging with fandom and how much they should pay attention to it.
Right.
Shocker. Based off of the things that we've done and the things that I talk about. But I've recently been thinking about it a lot because of how TikTok has started to influence marketing.
Yeah.
And like the Pedro Pascal fan edit situation has become such a big deal. And you look at it and like you now have in interviews, you have actors saying, like, using internet slang. Like Pedro is like, yeah, I am a daddy. And like there's like and like a new interview just came out for You, for the new season of You.
Yeah.
And Mr. Dan Humphrey himself is like talking about whether or not he's a daddy or whatever. And it's like, for me, it has gotten really cringeworthy to watch, where it's like the reason the internet worked so well to like market things is because you allowed it to sort of exist by itself.
Yeah.
It was free marketing because of how all you had to do was make something entertaining. You didn't necessarily have to make, as we know with Glee, you didn't have to make a good television show.
Yeah.
But you had to make something that was a show. And as long as it was enough that people were talking about it and getting attached to it, if you gave them something good enough, they would make you sort of like those fandom elements like you're talking about. Like Idina Menzel is Rachel Berry's mom.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, we don't know what that means.
Right.
But I think we should cast her.
Yeah, we should do something with that. Like, it seems like they're giving us a message.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know what that. What?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then Glee for a while did a pretty good job of like that fan service element of sort of like, we're not going to say that it's because you wouldn't shut the fuck up on the internet about it, but like, it's happening.
Yeah.
So, and then they really understood it. And now it's gotten to this point where it's like Variety has a TikTok account. Movies have like the movie themselves have TikTok accounts. Like, like Penn Badgley now is on TikTok and like, making things and like using clips from you and making memes out of his own work. And it's like at a certain point to me, it becomes too much.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't know that the celebrity belongs in the fan space.
Yeah.
And there's not a line drawn anymore. Whereas with Glee, it, to me as a fan, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it felt like they created a hurricane. They put it on television every week, and then they let you talk about it.
Yes.
And they were clearly checking in on the things that got big enough that they were looking at it. They gave you sort of like a nod or a wink or a slap to the face.
Yeah.
They sort of did what they wanted to do, but every once in a while they gave you a little moment that you were like, I know you're reading fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like, I know you are, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten my little nugget. But I never felt like they were sort of like, they towed the line.
Exactly.
They sort of like started, they gave you just enough for you to be like, you're on the internet.
Right. Like, I know you're watching, but I can't tell what you're looking at. Like,
yeah. And I can't tell how often. And I appreciate the things that you picked, and then I'm mad that you picked this thing. Like,
you didn't do this. Yeah.
They did a very good job of balancing that. And now I think it's just gone. Like, there's no balance. Everybody's like, I'm a daddy. What do you think about this hot fan edit of me?
Yeah, because now it just feels like, oh, okay, either I should get everything that I want, or it's become too blurred. So it just doesn't feel special anymore, because it's like, yeah, you're on the internet. I know you're here. You're the one trying to create the meme. Yeah. Whereas before it was like, that little element, like, was that this thing? Were they looking at it? Did that mean what I think it meant? Because you didn't know. It was so separate.
And I think it's also, it's like, it's not on, because I'm like processing what I said, and I'm like, that sounds like I'm really mad at Pedro Pascal specifically, and I'm really not. I think he's following what he's been being told to do by marketing, and that's totally fine. But I think it's just the element of like, I was thinking back, because we decided Glee came out in 2009, so like that element of sort of marketing at that time, that's around when like Twilight's getting big.
Yep.
It's around the Avengers. It's around it's a little post High School Musical, because I think the High School Musical 3 came out in theaters the same year Glee started. Feels correct. That might be wrong.
Close-ish.
Close around. It was around the time, yeah. So like you start to get these really big things where actors are paying attention to the internet.
Yeah.
Like Robert Pattinson is like talking about things that you're like, okay, you're on the internet.
Yeah.
And also definitely giving interviews that are being memed. Like left, right, and center. But not necessarily giving you the feel that he's like, put this on the internet for me. Like,
there isn't that like intense connection that there is now, where you feel like there's so much more of a back and forth between, like, you could feel like there's a back and forth between you and celebrity. Like, it feels so much closer. And back then it was like so far away. Like, you go and you see the cast of Glee, and it's like, oh my God, like, here they are. This is your only access to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Personally, I really miss the wall.
Yeah.
I really miss the separation of church and state.
Yeah, no,
separation
big
of
agree.
me and you.
Yes.
Like, because I remember going to the Glee mall tour.
Yeah.
And it was this, because we didn't actually get in. It was like this whole weird thing. I do have still on my wall to this day as an adult woman, like a signed cast photo of the first season of Glee.
Yeah.
And we didn't get in. It was being held in a Hot Topic.
Yep.
But we ended up getting, it was like a whole thing. My friend's dad got like someone at the Hot Topic to give us a poster, and like we had copies made, and like everybody has one. So like I took that with me to college. Like I had it on every little wall of mine. And so like now I think back on that though, and I remember like being like, well, at least we're here in the same place that they are. Like, we didn't, you know what I mean? Like,
at least I know where they literally are in this moment.
Yeah. Like we literally, like, I have pictures of myself in the like, you know how they did like the L on their foreheads?
Yeah.
So like I have pictures of myself and my friends from that like 2009. I have a terrible haircut. I have like bangs. I have curly hair with bangs. Like disaster. But I have all these photos of like me with like my friend doing the L on my forehead. Like we were like, oh, let's take the poster. And they're literally like in the Hollywood and Highland complex that we never would have gone to. But there's a Hot Topic there, and we were like outside. We were like, oh my God, I can see her through the window. Like, look at how pretty Diana is. And like, I miss that feeling of like that separation of I don't know anything about this person. And so I think this is what's missing now is I don't know anything about this person, and therefore I can project your character onto you. And you can only be that
person.
And I don't have to worry about something that you say as a person being a problem for that character, which unfortunately does fall apart later in Glee specifically.
It does. I feel there is a big I feel unfortunately, that the cast of Glee is a little bit cursed. But and it's kind of sad that there was that separation and that projection, and then as time goes on, just the way things work, like you said, there is some crumbling that comes from that, and you start to see like real people being unveiled.
I do. I think it makes it hard for there to be phenomenons in the same way because you know everything about a person because they're putting it on the internet. And it's just coming out. It's just like a very...
I don't want to see that celebrities are just people.
No, that's why they're called celebrities.
Like, I knew that conceptually, but I don't need to see it. I'm like, that's not what we're here for.
And then it's hard because obviously, like, eventually you're going to find out that a person is a terrible person.
Yeah,
and it
will come to light. Yeah.
And Glee is a rough example of that one, I think. In a lot of different ways, on a lot of different extremes. But it is, and that, you can't talk about Glee without acknowledging that.
Right.
But it is a lot. And it's, I just think it's interesting that like Glee really did have that separation. And I think part of it was the fact that everyone was so unknown at the beginning. I knew nothing about these people.
Which I think they did, was
intentional.
For
really,
sure. Very intentional to kind of, obviously we're going to create this band of misfits. Let's make them really big actors.
Like, really big celebrities. I super believe Chris Evans is not fitting in high school.
Right. We're buying it.
And I think also, ironically, I think that's also part of what made the Avengers at the same time work. They were using really, Scarlett Johansson was Scarlett Johansson.
Right.
Robert Downey Jr. was known for bad things that had happened in his career previously and in his life, which tied in very well with like sort of the character he was playing. And otherwise, like Chris Evans had done like 2 rom-coms, I think, that people were aware of. He did Not Another Teen Movie and What's Your Number, which was with Anna Faris. I really enjoyed his career prior to the Avengers, actually. Prior before he became Chris Evans. But they were all people that you were able to sort of be like, I don't know anything about this person, and therefore they can play to this element of like Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. Like, he struggles with these things. He is sort of like funny and like, and when you go back and watch those interviews, you can see them all sort of playing an archetype. And I think the same can be said of Glee. Like, and then we've found out so much about what was going on behind the scenes, and it's sort of, whew.
And that is a part too where it's like, oh, it's kind of devastating now that with the curtain coming down, some of the things that you do learn, and you're like, oh, you don't want it to color the past experience at all, but it kind of does in some ways, and you just can't help it, and you're like, oh, I just wish that wall could go back up,
But it's also another example of this curtain coming down. If we talk about the Lea Michele of it all, I don't know if you saw her most recent TikTok.
Oh no,
I don't know if it's most recent anymore because I don't check it very often.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, she's making her comeback post being outed as having not been the best person to work with.
Right.
To put it mildly.
Yeah.
However, she's making her comeback because of
Funny Girl?
Funny Girl.
Which another thing feels like happened because
that's what I was going to say.
Funny Girl
Lea Michele being in Funny Girl feels like something that happened because of Rachel Berry.
Yeah. Like, because that was like the part Rachel Berry was trying to play
for the rest
entire show.
Yeah.
The entire show. And Rachel gets that role.
Yeah.
That's
like the thing.
Yeah, like that is the whole thing. Like that from the moment Glee starts, Will Schuester might be the main character, but like it seems like Rachel's trying to launch this final career,
with her sort of curtain coming down. One of the most popular conspiracy theories that I'm sure you're aware of on the internet is that Lea Michele cannot read.
Oh yeah. Never heard that one before.
I don't know if you've heard about this. It's very intense. For those who don't know about it, I highly recommend watching the original video. And I remember when it first came out, I was really annoyed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this was before we knew Lea Michele was not like a great person to be around at the time growing up. And I think maybe it was just that like I felt very defensive of Glee and in general, but I was just like, well, this is so mean.
Yeah.
This is so mean.
Yeah.
I think it might be true because she has started to acknowledge the rumor. And I think it's so funny.
Has she really?
Well, so that's the thing is like in my quest of everyone putting the veil back up and getting off the internet, what she made this TikTok. And she's clearly trying to become like likable again, right?
Yeah.
But she made this TikTok and it's a picture of the announcement that Barbara Streisand is writing a book and that it's coming out. And I think it's like 200 and something days until the book's coming out based on the date. And she just puts on the screen with like it's her face and she's like holding her hand over her mouth like in shock and the picture of the Barbara Streisand's thing and she moves out of the way and it says 253 days to learn how to read. And it's like, that's a funny joke.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to make it.
Right.
I want someone else to be like, do you think Lea Michele can learn how to read in 253 days?
Right.
Like, get off the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. That's such a tricky line to navigate because, yeah, like you said, I'm like, it would be much funnier if somebody else made that joke. But I also understand her being like, the only way I can come back from this is if I try to convince everyone that whatever jokes are being made or whatever is going on, like I'm in on it and I'm laughing too. And, you know, we can all do this together.
But it's so funny to me because like after that video, I was like, any jokes about Lea Michele not knowing how to read aren't funny anymore.
Right.
Like now
like,
you've
you
taken
ruined
it. Which I get is probably the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like, maybe if
Reclaim
I
it.
totally get it. Reclaim it. I get it. But also learn to read.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just, I
don't know. But anyway, I think it is wild because I do think Glee has this like sort of ripples in the multiverse thing where I'm like, if that happened, would she ever have gotten to be Funny Girl?
Like, no, I don't think Lea Michele would be playing Funny Girl. I mean, she's not playing Funny Girl. She wouldn't be in Funny Girl right now if
playing Fanny Bryce.
That is, yes, the correct name. If this show hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of the tricky thing is that people didn't know. I feel like Rachel Berry had kind of like a mixed reaction as a character. Like, I don't really know how many people were rooting for her the whole time or really enjoyed her while they were watching Glee. Like I said, I remember kind of relating, but only because I was like, I want to be the star, you know? But I didn't really, I'm not sure I found her likable. And so now I think maybe Leah's in this space of trying to be like, how much, it feels like she's trying to figure out like how much of Rachel Berry, like how much of this person is real that now people have kind of projected onto her.
Yeah.
And it's this like really, again, it's this like melting together of I can't tell like what is you and what is this character that is like still being carried through your life because here you are doing something that the character did on the show.
Thank you so much for joining me this week for You Are What You Love. The beast that was Glee took us a little bit longer to talk through, so we'll be back next week with the second part of this episode about the hit musical TV series. If you're looking for something to listen to between now and then, I think you'll also enjoy an earlier episode I did with Molly Burdick. We discussed High School Musical, Glee's predecessor, and how the Disney Channel original movie changed Molly's trajectory and helped her become the creator that she is today. You can listen to that episode by scrolling back to episode 7, High School Musical with Molly Burdick, wherever you're listening now. Between now and next Wednesday, if you want to keep in touch, you can follow me on social media at Marissa Kamari, anywhere you get your social media fix. You can also sign up for my newsletter by going to our website, tandonproductions.com, clicking on You Are What You Love, and signing up there. I send out an issue with every episode of this podcast. And we just started a Discord server, so if you want to connect with me, with other listeners, and talk about the types of things that we are talking about on this show, you can join that by clicking on the link in the episode description. Until next Wednesday, I hope you are enjoying what you love.